Joining me right now, the former ambassador to the United Nations, former governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley. Ambassador, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you, Maria. Great to be with you.
I want to get to the Iran situation in a moment, but first, you just heard my interview with Petro Poroshenko. He said that Vladimir Putin is a war criminal. Is he committing war crimes?
Well, I met with President Poroshenko, and I'll tell you, he is absolutely a war criminal. He is an evil tyrant, and we should never trust Russia. I have said that from my very first day. You cannot trust Russia. You cannot trust Putin. And, you know, at this point, he has shown and proven that he does not value human life, and he's going to do whatever he has to make sure that he creates this Soviet empire, and we should be ready. We should have been ready before this. He had said it prior. We should have believed him, and, you know, we should have already started sanctioning their energy companies. We should have cut them off from the international banking system. We should have sent, you know, Ukraine all the missiles and capabilities that they needed. We were supposed to last March, when Russia started putting ground troops on the ground. Biden stopped from sending the missiles to Ukraine that we were supposed to send because he didn't want to upset Russia. We should have sent that. They would have been better armed. They would have been better ready. We've got a lot of time to make up for. We need to start doing these things very quickly.
Ambassador, what needs to be done now? The embassy in Kyiv tweeted that attacking a nuclear plant is a war crime. We are watching images of explosions and street fighting in cities across Ukraine. And I know that the Congress right now is taking up action this upcoming week about cutting off Russia's oil now. But what should the administration and allies be doing for Ukraine today?
Stop reacting and start leading. First of all, work with Ukraine on real-time intelligence so that we can tell them everything that's happening that they can't see. Make sure that we send anti-tank, anti-air missiles immediately. Make sure that we are telling Poland and NATO that they've got to supply these planes to Ukraine. They need them right away so they can cover their own airspace. We've got to make sure we sanction these energy companies, all of them. We've got to make sure that we pull them out of the international banking system. And we need to stop taking any Russian oil. The idea that we would give our money to an enemy is unthinkable, and it's absolute lunacy. We can't allow this to continue.
Well, on Wednesday, President Biden said that it was too early to say whether Russia had committed war crimes in Ukraine. He said that on Wednesday, Ambassador. Your reaction to that? And also, the UN Security Council will meet tomorrow to address the humanitarian crisis. What can they do?
Well, I mean, there's people dying in the streets. I mean, you've got, you know, Russia saying they need a ceasefire only so that they could get their troops ready again and then turn around and deny humanitarian aid in. So, I mean, I don't know what more Biden needs to see to know this is a thug, right? And I think at this point, they need to move forward. In terms of the Security Council meeting, I mean, the most you can do is humiliate Russia. They're going to turn around and veto anything that happens. So, you know, I don't put a lot of weight on the Security Council at this point or anything that they could do. What I put weight on is the U.S. leading. This all happened because of us. This happened from the way Biden left Afghanistan in the middle of the night from Bagram Air Force Base, when we were standing shoulder to shoulder with our allies for 2 decades and he didn't tell them. This happened when Biden waived Nord Stream 2, which President Trump fought the entire time. This happened by falling all over himself to get in the Iran deal. None of this had to happen. Now we need strength and deterrence, and we're not getting it.
Ambassador, I want to get your take on Iran. We are told that Russia is making new demands in terms of this new Iran deal, but more importantly, that Russia is the mediator on behalf of the United States in getting the U.S. back into the 2015 nuclear deal. Your reaction, and do you believe this deal will happen imminently?
So first of all, the idea that we would even be talking to Russia or China about what's happening with Iran is ridiculous. I mean, you don't allow an enemy to speak for you. You don't negotiate with an enemy at this point in time. We can't trust Russia. And the idea that we would be falling all over ourselves to turn around and allow Iran to have more money where they can go continue to terrorize the world is ridiculous. We should not in any way get back in this Iran deal. We shouldn't do any negotiations with them. The only way we should do this is if we have our Arab partners that are involved in it that know how deadly and lethal Iran can be. We should not be doing this. And, you know, it's bad enough that Biden leaned on China to go get help with Russia. I mean, you're going and you're leaning on one enemy to get help with another. I never told China anything I didn't want Russia to know. I mean, this is just naive, and this is weak on every level. It's why we're continuing to have the problems, is because the U.S. is being foolish about how we're dealing with our situations.
It's actually quite extraordinary, Ambassador. I mean, here we have our biggest adversary, China, passing on information that it received from President Biden and this administration, passing it on to Russia. Assess this newfound friendship, partnership, whatever you want to call it, between China and Russia and the threat it represents to the United States right now.
Well, I saw it when I was at the United Nations. In my second year, I saw them coming together closer and closer. And it's not that Russia and China trust each other. It's not even that Russia and China like each other. But they come together because they both see the West as the great sin. They both hate America. They both hate the West, and they want to destroy it. And so that one mutual component is what drives them together. Russia is definitely the junior partner of China. But I'll tell you, the one thing with all of this war that's happening, we can't take our eyes off of China, because everyone's talking about how this is going to deter China from moving into Taiwan. That is not what this is going to do. It's not if China moves into Taiwan, it's when. All they're doing is they're taking notes on exactly what countries are going to Ukraine's defense. They're taking notes on what companies are leaving Russia. They're looking at what aid is going. All this is doing is changing their strategy. If you notice, they just came out yesterday or day before and claimed that Taiwan was part of China. This is them slowly making their move. So Biden, while he hasn't quite gotten his grips on what's happening in Russia, we need to be looking at China, because that's next. And when that happens, that's an all-out issue that's going to affect every American, because we are way too dependent on China, and it's going to come back to bite us.
And yet we're not pushing back on that. And I'm not seeing an aggressive move of supply chains back to the United States. I know that 90% of the chemicals in our prescription drugs are made in China. And this last few weeks, the administration canceled the China initiative, Ambassador. Your reaction to that? The Department of Justice will no longer be investigating China's theft of intellectual property of the United States?
I mean, this is really being as naive as it gets. Here you've got China. They've built up their military. They've modernized their military. They have the largest naval fleet, more air defense systems than we do. They steal intellectual property, and we're not doing anything to hold them accountable. Sanctions were put on place under Trump, but they're not following through with it. They're abusing 1 million Muslim Uyghurs. They have turned around and said that any company that does business in China has to cooperate with the Chinese military. Think about our tech companies. Think about all of our health data, all of our financial data, all of our lifestyle data, and know that the Chinese military has it. They have said whoever owns the data rules the world, and they are moving in that direction. But look at COVID. No one has once made them even say what or hold them accountable for what they did with COVID. That was the biggest sign that they would go and close their borders to people coming in when COVID broke out, but they let all these people go out so that the rest of the world was infected. So you have to understand your enemy, and that's the part Biden's not paying attention to. The idea that he would even go to them and think that they would be helpful is the first problem. The second problem is the fact that they should already be sending equipment to Taiwan. They should already be coordinating with Taiwan, because this is going to be a Ukraine. Get in front of it. Start dealing with it now. Get ready. Because all they're doing is they're sending out COVID tests to Americans, and you turn it over and it's made in China. They're making us, they're telling us to wear N95 masks. Those are made in China. We get our medical supplies from China. We've got to stop, and we've got to wake up.
This is so extraordinary. Ambassador, please come back. We will continue following this and hope to check in with you soon. Thank you so much. Ambassador Nikki Haley joining us this morning.